Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor. I'm your host, Danielle.
And I'm Kayla. What's up?
And we're so glad to have you back with us. We took a brief hiatus for our No Limits conference, and this is, we're recording right after that, but it's going to drop in about 2 weeks. So yeah, we're just glad to be back in the studio, and things have calmed down slightly in our lives.
Slightly.
Everything seems more calm after No Limits, even if it's not, because you don't have that on top of it as well.
Right, exactly.
But speaking of No Limits, you always get a chance to see people that you love and hang out with them. And I just had dinner with two very, very good friends of mine, Naomi and Hannah Brewer, and I told them that I was going to be giving them a shout out on the podcast. Because I told them, I was like, if I had one more mic, they could come over and record.
Oh my word, that would have been so cool.
But I'm like, I don't know how we would have done that logistically, so I need to plan better. And I definitely want to have them on. So guys, if you're listening, please plan on that. I would like to have you on Friendeavor the podcast, and I'm sure Kayla would be.
Yes,
would be
absolutely.
Down as well. All right, let's dive into this week's episode 25, which is our
crazy.
That's kind of a landmark. 25 episodes.
25.
That's kind of crazy.
Yes.
Which is how to support your friends in difficult times. We are all going to go through difficult times in our lives. There's not one person who's going to have it smooth sailing 100%. Yeah. And I think as friends and as a community, you have to be prepared to help other people through those difficult times.
And help can look different for different people.
Yeah. It's kind of like the love language thing. It's gonna manifest itself differently. Right,
exactly. In our friend group, we've all been going through difficult times at different periods of time. And there was a time when one of my friends was going through a difficult season, and she actually told us, like, I don't want to talk about this every time we hang out, because naturally we're adults and we're only hanging out like once a week and maybe not even that. And so then when we do get together, we want to connect and like, check up. Yeah, like give us all the updates about this situation. And she just at one point told us, like, can we just hang out? Like, I don't want to talk about this every time. And I know you guys mean well, but it's always on my mind.
Yeah.
And so like, it kind of made us realize like, oh, that totally makes sense for her. So yeah, this is going to be a great episode because we're going to talk about different ways to support your friends that don't always look like talking about the tough stuff.
Yeah. And some of these you might sit there and listen and be like, wow, these are very generic. These are very general. Like, this is common sense. First of all, it's not common sense for everyone. And second of all, it's just nice to have a reminder sometimes and just be told not told how to think, but told what other people do, and it's kind of like a reflection of your own behavior. So if you want to take notes, like I tell my kids all the time, grab a notebook, sit back, just listen as we chat, and maybe you'll learn something. Number one, this might be so obvious, like I said, but just listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes all a person needs is someone to listen to them without judgment, and be there to hear what your friend has to say and allow them to express. So in that instance that you just brought up, there might be some times where that friend wants to talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even want you to try to solve their problem, but they just want you to know where they're coming from. Sometimes I feel bad when I'm like talking to my friends about what I'm going through, because I don't want them to do anything about it. I don't want them to feel some type of way about it and like, oh, I really have to help her out or anything. It's just like, I just need you to know what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
Because it's so difficult, and I feel like I'm just carrying this burden by myself. So if I can just tell you about it. You could just listen,
right,
and hear me without having to try to fix whatever I'm going through.
A lot of the times, your friends just want you to know. I mean, yeah, it's great to, if you have some feedback and stuff that you think they would benefit from hearing, absolutely share it. But a lot of the times, your friends just want you to know. They want you to be aware. And so, like, hey, if I'm acting standoffish, or if, you notice something, this is what's up.
Yeah. And I think that there's also an interesting, and I credit the internet in general for this. The internet has got some wonderful things, and it's also got some dangerous things. But for this, it said, are you, it was a friend asking another friend, are you in the headspace to receive my vent right now? Like, are you able to, like, take this on? Because I know that people got their own things going on, and I don't want to just bleh on you when you're already going through something too. So listening and knowing when people are ready to listen are skills that take a little bit of growing up and maturity and feeling out if it's something that is appropriate for that situation.
Yeah. All
right. Number 2, this is one that I've gotten a lot better about since I've become a teacher. Because my students, I need them to know that I know what they're going through. But number 2 is validate their feelings. Yeah. So let your friend know that it's okay to feel the way that they do. Like, I completely understand why you're frustrated. I completely understand why you feel disrespected. I would too in that situation.
Absolutely.
And validate their emotions and acknowledge what they're feeling. It's real and it's understandable. And even in the instances where it seems like, wow, that's really petty. Wow, that would never be the way that I reacted to it. They're feeling disrespected.
Obviously it's hurting them in some way.
There's no way that they would just lash out or whatever without feeling like okay. Emotions are an interesting thing because it's like, it's so easy to dismiss someone else's because you're not feeling them at the time.
Exactly.
But when you're feeling them and you can't express how you're feeling, you're like, I'm just mad. One time, I was like 14 or something, and I was just raging. I was a young teenage girl, and hormonal changes and all that stuff, and I was ticked. I was just so mad. And Brett came into my room and he's like, what is your problem? And I was like, I don't know what my problem is. Because I had no idea why I was so mad. It was just something that obviously I know now. Like, yes. I was 14 and he just could not
wrap his head around it.
He could not wrap his head around it. And he just thought like, wow, that is the stupidest person in the world for being angry for no reason. And I'm like, he wasn't feeling what I was feeling at the time. If he had been, he would have completely understood what I was doing, but I really just needed to be left alone, but validating their feelings, it gives them the license to also open up and share what they're feeling. Maybe they're just closed off and they're just, but you're like, hey, I understand why you're sad. Mm-hmm. That would have hurt me too. Yeah. And we're jumping ahead, but that's, feeling empathy, but we won't get ahead of ourselves. But in this context, just validate what they're feeling.
Yes.
It could be depression. It could be sadness. It could be anger. It could be being happy. Like, it doesn't just have to be, we're talking about difficult situations, so we're not going to go off into happy land too much, but.
Right. But even if your friend is telling you about a situation and they're super happy about it, but you don't think it's a good situation, then like you said, validate their happy feelings. Like, I can see why this would be fun for you because da-da-da-da-da. I want to caution you about da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And that's why I think validating feelings, there can be too little of it, but there can also be too much of it. Yes. Just like anything, you have to find a balance.
Behaviors.
Yes, exactly. And I think I am 100% a believer in validating feelings. But I do think there is over-validation. Mm-hmm. And we could probably dedicate a whole episode to that. Yeah. But,
later. And validating feelings to the point of enabling.
Yes, exactly.
I just saw a video of a person who is, like, on death's door unhealthy because of how their mother allowed them, like, just enabled the behavior just over and 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 over. And I'm like, and I deal with a lot of parents in my job, and I can tell the ones that genuinely want the best for their kids but don't know how to do it, and I can tell the ones who think they know what's best for their kids but and then it just makes me so annoyed
Yeah.
It's not like you're validating their bad behavior. You don't have to validate their bad behavior.
No.
You can validate their feelings. You can say, hey, I know why you made that choice, but this is why it was wrong.
Yes.
I'm currently observing a situation unfold, and I told someone last week, I was like, 80% of Friendeavor is me observing things.
Yes.
20% is experience. And she laughed and she's like, what do you observe about me? And I'm like, well, I guess you'll find out in an episode one day.
Oh my
But
word,
I'm currently observing a situation that is just going down the wrong path. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my circle, but I'm watching it unfold through the lens of social media, through infrequent interactions, and I'm just like, that is a bad situation on its way. And parents are just not stepping in and taking charge and redirecting their kid. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have a mess on your hands.
Yeah.
And I'm not some oracle that's gonna go, proclaim, see, I saw it coming.
Yeah.
But you'd have to be blind or an enabler to just brush it aside.
Right. That's why validating feelings also has to come, well, from the parenting aspect, has to come with a consequence. Like, yes, I see you were angry and so you did that, but that was not okay, and now you need to go in timeout. Like, but from like a friendship. Or you need
to apologize.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I totally understand that they took your hand, but that is not, you don't react that way, or whatever they did.
Exactly.
And then, yeah. Because that, like I said, there's such a difference between validating and enabling.
Right.
Our third tip on how to help people through difficult situations is to offer practical advice. So there will be some situations where your friend is coming to you because they need you. They need your help. They need advice. And depending on the situation, practical assistance can be an asset. It can include, helping them with the chores or running their, all that kind of stuff that is like tasks. But also, it could be advice that's within your scope of understanding. So, a lot of times, and you see this humorously, that, I give my best friend 2 hours of advice, but then I end it with, but that's just me. What do I know? To excuse yourself from if it goes badly, like giving yourself an out. Yes. But practical help and practical advice is kind of being a sounding board for them. It doesn't have to be like, this is exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
I know that you need to do this and you need to do it right now because I could blow up in your face.
Yeah.
Do you actually have all the information? Are you coming from a point of backing up your friend? You're like, oh yeah, that was terrible. Like, go deal with this. But then you don't actually know what's going on. So you have practical help, which is like literally physically assisting them in difficult situations. And then you have practical advice and practical emotional balance and that kind of thing.
Right.
Number 4, we hear this word a lot, empathy, be empathetic. And even though you can kind of easily define it as putting yourself in someone else's shoes, I feel like it's a lot easier said than done, because experience is the thing that really gets you to understand where someone was coming from and what they experienced. But by putting yourself in your friend's shoes, trying to understand what they're going through, it really shows that you care.
Exactly.
More than saying like say your friend went through a house fire. That doesn't mean you have to go and be like, okay, maybe I should burn some of my stuff so I can figure out what, where they're coming from.
No.
Just trying to get into the headspace of loss and be like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Like, and acknowledging that you can't imagine.
Yes.
Oh, you just lost your spouse? That is horrifying.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what you're going through. Don't try to compare their loss to your other lesser loss.
Exactly. And
like,
sometimes
my dog died and I felt that way too. No.
You're well intended sometimes, but you got to think about the scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is such it's so different.
Yeah.
And oh man, like empathy. I remember in middle school, that's actually the first time I ever heard the word empathy, because social emotional education wasn't huge when I was in elementary school. It is now, but it wasn't then. And so I was sitting in like a seminar or something about that, about empathy and, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And in 7th grade or 6th grade or whatever, I was like, okay, you know, because at that age you don't have life experience to say, and if you do, it's usually tragic life experience. And so for this case, I really want to caution you against trying to compare your experiences with their experiences when you're trying to help them, when you're trying to help them through a difficult situation. Kayla and I both know this person who, it doesn't matter what you've done, where you've been, who you've talked to. I don't care what life event you have, this person has done it more or better or worse or whatever the situation is. If you're comparing a situation where you missed your plane on this once in a life vacation, they would say, well, I missed my plane, my train, and my boat, and I got shot on the way there. Okay, so like there's this, like it's always whatever you've been through. Oh yeah, I did that too, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like,
I got shot on the way there.
And there's this other friend who every time it comes up and we're with them, I look at her. It's awful. I look at her, or she'll leave where we're standing, and I'm like, there's another one. That's another example.
My word. Yes.
And this is constantly, it just, I don't even know where I was going with that. What was I saying? Be empathetic.
Yeah.
And so you go and you're just like, oh yeah, you know, that was bad, but it could have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's the opposite of validating one person's feelings, and that's the opposite of empathy. But oh man, it's both sad and funny.
Yeah.
It would be, for a person who didn't realize what was going on, it would be maddening. But you really just have to feel sorry for those kind of people, because it's like,
yeah,
they got nothing else going on.
Right. And like everything, being empathetic, it does require some balance too, and you have to learn how to do it correctly, which is why we're talking about it, obviously. Mm-hmm. But one time, a couple years ago, we just talk about experience on this podcast. I don't claim to be like, you know, professional friendship person, right, but I just talk from experience.
We're well on our way though.
Yeah.
We have 25 podcast episodes.
25 episodes in, people. No, a few years ago, I was hashing something out with a friend, and in an attempt to recognize the hurt she had been through, not that I caused, something else caused, I started the sentence with, I understand that you did it. And she interrupted me. She's like, no, that's the thing. You don't understand. Like, you don't understand. You've never, ever been through something like that. And I mean, in my mind, I was trying to be empathetic. But after that, just as a rule, I haven't used that phrase so often. Instead I say, okay, I recognize that because you can recognize something, but oftentimes you don't really understand something. Mm-hmm. And though I think that reaction was not warranted, I do see where she was coming from. Yeah. That you don't understand.
Could be the heat of the moment, emotions was
right,
high or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And in that same vein, we can go on to the next one, which is avoid judgment. So when someone's trying to confide in you, in any one of these situations, whether they're literally wanting advice and help, or if they just want you to listen, don't try to just listen. You don't have to be like, why did you do it like that? Like, that's not how I would have done it, or whatever.
Exactly.
And so avoiding criticism or judging your friends' actions or decisions. What if they got themselves in a mess and they realize they've got themselves in a mess? They didn't. It could have been an I told you so situation. You may have said, like, don't do that. That's going to happen, and predicted it. When they're coming crying for you, are you really going to kick them while they're down?
No, absolutely not.
Are you really going to... You might not agree with them. Yeah. I would hope that you don't agree with them if that's, you know, if it's a bad situation. Yeah. So instead you just revert back to that empathy, trying to understand, recognizing where they're coming from, being that shoulder to cry on. And I think a friendship can flourish in those moments.
Exactly.
They're not great.
Yeah.
They're not fun to experience, especially when you knew what was coming down the line. But, you know, it happens, and judgment's not going to get you anywhere.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think judging and you're so judgmental, and judgment is a term that I feel like is just so loosely thrown around these days. And I just, want to hear just like a shortened little, what is the difference to you between judging someone and making an observation, or telling a friend that what they did was wrong without being quote unquote judgmental?
So I think that, firstly, if you're trying to, well, okay, think of what a judge is in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who makes a decision and then gives a consequence because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Gives a reaction because of it.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and you're like, I really messed up. Yeah. Like, well, yeah, you did. And now you're no longer my friend. You're a loser. You're whatever. And then judging them and like, I mean, that's not a great example of it, but in those instances, really you're making, to pass judgment on someone is like almost to write them off.
Right.
And that instance is to be written off.
Yeah.
In our situation, you can make observations about what they went through. Like, so what I'm seeing is a pattern of self-destruction. Mm-hmm. You've done this before, and you can even point out the evidence. You did this, you did this, you did this. How are you going to change from there? What steps are we going to take as a team, a friendship,
right,
or individually, whatever, to no longer make these decisions? You're not ending a friendship. You're not writing them off. You're not throwing away the key. You're like observing that's happening. So to give you kind of a funny example, I am a super like physically observant person. I tend to notice things that other people don't. And occasionally I will point them out to my sister. I'm like, Kara, look at that. And she's like, I don't judge people. You always judge. I'm like, I am not judging them.
Yeah.
I'm not making a judgment about that person because of whatever I observed about them. You can notice things and see things. If I said, okay, that person is disgusting because of what I just observed.
Right. That's
a judgment. You're drawing a conclusion about them.
Exactly.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, wow, that mirror over there's got a gold trim. I didn't say that's a hideous mirror. Mm-hmm. It's an observation.
Yeah.
And she still does not agree with me. I could call her in here right now and she would disagree with me, but I'm right. So
no, I can see that difference. Yeah. I really like that.
So it's like you make the judgment is like making the observation and then acting on it. Mm-hmm. I'm teaching my kids right now about claims, evidence, and reasoning. And claims is basically after you've made an observation, you make a claim about it and then you provide your evidence. Mm-hmm. In this case, I'm observing something and then I'm making a claim about it. And it might be technically true, like whatever piece of evidence I'm linking to it, but that doesn't make it kind.
Yeah.
So observation and judgment, not the same thing. And in these situations, the helping people through difficult times, you can observe behavioral patterns. You can observe how they're allowing themselves to be treated. Maybe it's a bad boyfriend or a bad girlfriend or whatever. Like I noticed that when he says this to you, you kind of get down. Yeah. What do you think that means? Like, do you think that's coming from a loving point or whatever? And then a judgment would be like, he treats you like garbage. You need to cut him off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, does he actually treat you like garbage, or do you not actually see the whole picture?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's not a great example, but just trying to paint the picture of what it means, in my opinion, observation versus judgment. Writing someone off.
Or treating them in a certain way.
Yeah, treating them a different way. Yeah, it's like prejudice to prejudge someone.
Yeah.
Based off the color of their skin, their job, their whatever, oh, you're a lawyer, so you just sue people all the time. You don't know anything about what type of law they practice. You are prejudging them.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So that's, to me, the difference. Another way of helping people in difficult times can be providing distraction for them.
Yeah.
If you think about someone who is maybe caring for a sick loved one, or maybe recently experienced a loss and their life has kind of turned into just dwelling on what was, providing a distraction and engaging in activities together can provide that welcome distraction from a difficult time. Offer to spend time with them.
Yeah.
What is their favorite things to do? What do they like to do? Would a drive help?
Yeah.
Would a trip help? It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be tiny. But just something that they enjoy. A walk to the park, going to a play, having dinner.
Yeah.
Whatever would help them get out of the molly grubs that they find themselves in.
Exactly.
They could be completely valid molly grubs.
Yeah.
But would having a nice distraction help them get out of their head and get back to being the person who you know and love?
Absolutely. That's why all these things that we're sharing work together so well, because you can't have too much distraction and not enough empathy and whatever. You can't have too much over-validating feelings and not enough distraction. All these work together so well, and that's why we're talking about all of them. I think providing distraction is really important when you're helping a friend go through a tough time.
Yeah. Which this actual one, you said they all work together really well. In this 6, which is providing distraction, goes really well with number 7, which is encouraging self-care.
Yeah.
You can have a self-care date with the person who you're trying to provide distraction for. If this person's difficult time is making them not be able to sleep, or just take care of themselves, if they've been pouring into someone else or another situation for so long that they've neglected their hygiene or, like I said, their sleep or their family or anything else, that physically and mentally encourage them to engage in activities that promote relaxation, well-being, connectivity, mindfulness, exercise, meditation, prayer. All those kinds of things are the things that work together to promote self-care. And I said prayer because spiritual self-care is so important too.
Absolutely. People can neglect that.
So caught up in the deals of life that you neglect it. And then it'll only perpetuate your situation worse.
Yeah.
Because then you feel like you have no connectivity to the body.
Yeah.
Or to God. And then you feel depressed and anxious, and it just is a disgusting cycle. But if you can get back to what matters, tap into what matters, take care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, your emotions are gonna benefit. They're gonna tick up. I mean, all those things work together. I know we sometimes focus on, okay, mental health these days. Mental health, you got mental health. Well, if you go for a run, your endorphins and all that stuff, the way that God so beautifully created us, it's going to help your mental health.
Yes.
So all these things are not separate.
Yep.
Okay, I'm only going to take care of my physical health and my spiritual health today. What about your mental and emotional?
Right.
They all work together. And if you get one strengthened, another one's going to help it, right? It's going to grab it by the hand and raise it up, and then eventually you'll be back in balance. But
absolutely,
in the meantime, you as a friend can see, you can observe, okay, well, you know, they look like they haven't slept in a week.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could get them a hotel for the night and just have some them time. We wouldn't bat an eye at taking our friend out to $100 meal. I feel like but you know, $100 hotel, like, that's so random. Why would I do that? Well, not everyone's going to be doing that, shelling out money, but
some people, home is not the relaxing environment.
And like, what if that's the thing that they need? I had the most random experience 2 weeks ago, which is why I think this is fresh in my mind. My parents had gotten a hotel for a missionary who was in town, and through a series of circumstances, he couldn't come. And they're like, hey, we already paid for this. Do you want to go there? I went to this hotel that's 4 minutes from my house, stayed the night there, came home, cloud 9. I was by myself. I was doing self-care, all the masks. And
so great.
So that's probably why that one is a little bit more fresh. But what if that, like, the mother who just needs a break? She needs a break. And her husband's great. And she has it. But, like, I don't know. What would that would do for someone who just needs just a little time for themselves? Which turns into number 8, offering resources. If it's appropriate, you know, if someone's going through a really, really difficult financial time, feel it out and see if you can offer them resources that are out there to to help them, because not everyone knows how to take advantage of that kind of thing. You know, you've got counseling services, or, you know, the hotlines that exist, that kind of thing. And I think you guys can read between the lines here what kind of services we're referring to.
Yeah.
But that is how you can help your friend through a difficult time.
Yes.
Is knowing where they're at.
Absolutely.
What are they experiencing? No, you're not a mind reader. And actually, probably next week we're going to have, it's before the end of the season, we're going to have it, but about how your friends are not mind readers. And we're going to dive deep into how important that is. But a short glimpse into it is that you can't be fully blamed if something bad happens, but you should be in touch with your friends enough to be like, I saw the signs, you know, that kind of thing. And so, offer resources. It doesn't have to be out of your own pocket. Find the resources that are available and direct them to them.
Yeah.
Some people are really good about that. Some people just, you know, don't even know what's out there. Which leads us to number 9, checking in regularly. Keep in touch with those friends. We've done several episodes about how to do that through activities and digital connectivity and all that kind of thing. Keep in touch with your friends. See how they're doing.
Yeah.
Let them know how you're doing. Because sometimes people, they want to know, but they don't want to ask because they don't want to be intrusive. But just like, if you're going through a similarly difficult time, you don't have to one-up them, but you could be like, I feel you. This is happening in my life too. Because Instagram and all that stuff can make it seem like everyone leads picture-perfect lives.
Yeah.
But that is never the case.
Never.
And let them know that you're there for them.
Yeah.
And that you care about them. And again, we're focusing on difficult times. You should be keeping up with your friends and checking in even in not difficult times.
Yeah.
But you'll really be kicking yourself if your friendship, you know, kind of ebbs, you know, flows, trickles away because you weren't really checking in and paying attention.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Our last one is respecting boundaries. So difficult situations are a range from, you know, just a bad day all the way to relationships falling apart and loss of life, loss of possession. There's really no end to the spectrum of what it could be. So if you're in a situation where I don't want to give specifics here, but you know, Kayla, you know, the listener knows, there are some situations that there are just boundaries that ought not be crossed.
Yeah.
You can be there for them, and like, but you're over there for them. Like, here's the boundary. Yeah. Hey, if you need me, come over here and come get me. I'm not going to come into this fiery pit of a situation and try to sort things out for you. If you need me, I'll be here. But also, I totally understand that this is a private matter, and I'm not gonna go in there and try to fix things. I'm also not gonna take what I know about you out. Yeah. Beyond the boundary to someone else. Be like, dude, did you hear what's going on? Mm-hmm. That is not being there for your friend. Yeah. That is gossip. Right. And that's no way to help a friend through a difficult time. So let your person that you're trying to help take the lead in dictating how far they want it to go. Exactly. Yeah. Obviously, if it's like a loss of life or something, meal trains and all that kind of stuff are very helpful. Yeah. But those people who comment on posts that say, like when you say, you know, RIP person, and the people who comment like, what happened? What happened? Oh, they're dead. What happened? Insensitive. It's so insensitive. And let me tell you something. We are all humans, and we all want to know. Yeah. But that is just out of curiosity. And please don't be one of those people who comments on people's death posts and be like, what happened?
I just think, like, when in doubt, when you don't know what to say, you don't know what not to say, you don't know what kind of boundaries they don't want crossed, you don't know how much distraction they want, all this, when you're in doubt, an act of service is just, it's not dangerous at all. I mean,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, you can go get them flowers, get them a candle, get them a coffee. The worst thing that could happen is they don't like that coffee or they don't like that candle. And they're not going to tell you that.
The gesture is going to supersede that.
Exactly. You're not showing up to their home uninvited. You can leave it on their doorstep. You're not crossing a boundary by asking them intrusive questions. You're simply letting them know, I'm thinking about you, but I'm going to give you your space right now. And nobody can be mad about an act of service. So
my mom is really good about sending out like thinking of you cards, like well-wishing cards, or when someone's sick or going through loss or whatever. And I feel like that is an old art. We don't really send those that often. But that's such a great way to be like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And if you really mean it, then say it. Yeah. I think that in times of stress and difficult situations, people say, I'm here for you. But the person who is going through the situation doesn't take advantage of it because they're like, are they just saying that?
Yeah.
Is it just lip service? Is it just because that's the cheapest card at Dollar Tree?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so they don't even know how to reach out for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if there's anything, I mean, all these are good tips, but if there's anything that you think that we missed, let us know, because I'd love we are still learning. Like, we love to learn these things as we're researching them for you guys and as we present them. And so if there's something that you do that helps your friend through difficult times, we'd love to hear about it, because we're always trying to add to our repertoire of friendship tips and tricks.
Yep.
All right, next week we're going to try to do that episode. Your friends are not mind readers, because that's something that is desperately needed to be talked about. And we will see you next week.
See you guys next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.